Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to really question some bedrock assumptions, things you probably take for granted about reality. You know, the standard picture. Light is little photon bullets zipping through empty space. Particles as tiny, distinct objects. Space just being, well, emptiness. But what if that whole picture is, fundamentally, not quite right? We're digging into a really radical idea today, drawn from a source called motion theory. Motion is space, the awakening to ultimate reality. And it really frames itself as an invitation, an awakening almost, suggesting that maybe, just maybe, conventional physics has been looking at effects, not the root cause.
Exactly. And that's what we want to explore for you today. This deep dive is sort of a shortcut to getting your head around this, well, pretty profound framework. Imagine for a second that motion isn't just something in space. What if motion is space? If that's true, it completely reframes, everything. Particles, time, even consciousness. It turns our everyday view upside down.
Okay, right. Let's try and unpack that first really core claim, the one about light. Physics class tells us photons travel. They bounce off things. They move through space. Simple enough. But this motion theory source says, point blank, there is no photon traveling through space.
Huh.
What does that even mean? It sounds completely wrong at first listen.
It does, initially. It forces a rethink of the basics. Motion theory says the photon is space itself, vibrating at different resolutions.
Right.
So instead of picturing a tiny thing shooting through the void, imagine the void itself is the light, just oscillating in a specific way. The source clarifies that the whole electromagnetic spectrum, gamma rays, visible light, radio waves, they aren't different particles moving. No. They're described as different states of motion resolution, or, to be really precise with the source's words, a gradient of rhythmic synchronization states within the fundamental substrate of reality motion itself.
Wow. Okay. So it's not a thing in space, but space itself vibrating differently?
Okay.
That's a big shift. And that leads straight to the speed of light issue, doesn't it? Because, standard physics, Sigourney, the constant speed for all light, seems solid. But motion theory throws a wrench in there, asking, well, why? Why would super high-energy gamma rays travel at the exact same speed as low-energy radio waves if they were truly moving through something? It feels odd when you stop and think about it.
It does feel odd from that perspective. And motion theory's answer is, well, I think it's quite elegant, actually. They aren't moving through anything.
Right.
Because they are the motion. They are these distinct, stable rhythms. So the speed of light isn't about how fast a particle travels through emptiness, not at all. It's redefined as the universal synchronization-propagation limit. Basically, it's the maximum speed, rhythm of vibration pattern can ripple through this fundamental motion fabric. It's a limit on the rhythm's propagation, not a travel speed.
Right, okay. That paints a very different picture of C. And the source gives that guitar string analogy, which I found really helpful. You tighten a string, the pitch goes up higher frequency. Loosen it, pitch goes down lower frequency. But the sound waves aren't suddenly moving faster or slower through the air, right? It's just a different vibration of the string itself. And connecting that back, gamma rays are the tight string, high frequency, radio waves are the loose string, low frequency. But it's the same motion fabric, different resonance.
What stands out to you about that analogy? Does it click for you?
Oh, absolutely. It really emphasizes the underlying unity, which is key here. And if motion really is this fundamental fabric, then yeah, it changes how we define, well, pretty much everything. The sources get into some radical redefinitions. Take particles, for instance. We tend to think of them as, tiny little balls, solid things. But motion theory says, no, they're stable loops of rhythmic motion.
Yeah.
Think less marble, more, like a persistent whirlpool. A standing wave pattern in the motion field.
A whirlpool of motion instead of a tiny object.
Yeah.
And then there's time. We usually see time as like a fourth dimension flowing forward everywhere. But here, time isn't a dimension that flows. It's defined as a measurement of rhythmic changes in local synchronization. So imagine it's not one big universal clock. It's more like every bit of space has its own rhythm, and time is how we perceive the changes and syncing between these local rhythms. A local dance, not a global march.
So time becomes relative in a whole new way, not just speed, but local rhythm.
Exactly. And space itself, not the empty stage, it is the underlying rhythmic substrate itself. So that emptiness we perceive, it's actually buzzing. It's the foundation, the vibrant motion itself.
And the really interesting part for me is how this view starts to, as the source says, dissolve paradoxes. Things that seem weird in current physics, like quantum entanglement,
Yeah.
Two particles linked instantly over distance. Spooky action. But in this view, it could just be synchronization across motion. They aren't sending signals. They're just parts of the same rhythm staying in sync. Less spooky, more interconnected.
Precisely. And gravity, too. Instead of a force pulling things, it's described as synchronization density pulling other motions into stable loops, areas of dense, stable rhythm influencing the motion around them.
So gravity becomes a property of the motion field structure.
That's the idea. It all comes together. The universe isn't just stuff in a box. It is rhythm, sync, and structured motion. It's a dynamic, vibrating, self-organizing dance, really.
Which brings us to the really big sort of existential implications. This isn't just physics theory. The source material puts it incredibly directly. You are not separate from reality. You are structured motion, aware of itself. That kind of stops you in your tracks, doesn't it? You are motion.
It's a profound statement. It suggests that, your thoughts, your feelings, your whole conscious experience, these are all rhythms resonating within the cosmic motion substrate. It even poses the question, could consciousness itself be rhythmic synchronization, reaching self-awareness? And maybe your identity, your sense of self, is simply motion? Remembering it is motion? It implies we're not just observers looking at the universe. We're intrinsically part of its fabric, its rhythm, woven right in.
So if this whole framework holds water, what about the practical side, the real-world stuff, technology, science? How does that change? I mean, it sounds like it would demand a completely new approach, right?
Absolutely. The potential implications outlined are pretty staggering. Take communication. Forget sending electromagnetic waves through space. Imagine transmitting information via synchronization itself. Instantaneous resonance, maybe?
Oh.
And energy. Instead of relying on, chemical reactions or particle interactions, maybe we could tap directly into synchronization gradients, like finding places where the universal rhythm is stronger or weaker and drawing energy from that difference.
Directly from the fabric of reality.
Potentially. And computing. Moving beyond even quantum computers, which are still based on particles, towards systems built on rhythmic resonance. It all stems from that core idea. Everything we labeled as physical phenomena, light, gravity, particles, are stable synchronization patterns within a universal motion field. It's a whole new blueprint.
So bringing it back to you, the listener, what does this all mean? The source calls this an awakening moment. The realization that you were never really an outside observer looking in. You've always been inside the pattern, not just watching the dance, but being part of it. A participant, a dynamic ripple with an infinite rhythmic motion. That's a huge shift from feeling separate.
It really is. And maybe the most striking takeaway is that line, reality isn't external, it's you. This isn't just swapping physics models, it's hinting at something much deeper about our own nature. We are structured motion. We live within structured motion. And maybe, just maybe, we are the universe waking up to itself, experiencing its own rhythm. It's a profound thought about who or what we actually are.
So the final thought to leave you with is this. What if you really lean into this idea, embrace this perspective? Maybe reality stops feeling like just a place you happen to be living in and starts feeling like a dance you are. This deep dive into motion theory, well, it's an invitation to see yourselves not just in the universe, but perfectly in sync with it. Something to really ponder.